happy podcasting day, everybody. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Hey, is it football season yet?
Oh, I'm so ready for it. And the Hall of Fame game doesn't count as real football. I don't know anyone that watches more than like 3 minutes and then realizes, I'm done. I don't need to watch this anymore.
Yeah, that's preseason in general, but yeah. All exciting at first, and then you're like, oh, I don't even know the names of these guys playing quarterback.
Right. We're not even talking about like depth guys. We're talking about like roster fodder. These are guys that are all being cut in like the first wave of, you know, the NFL roster cuts in like 3 weeks.
Yep.
But anyway, we have like somewhat real football coming up this Saturday. We have preseason starting for the Seahawks this Saturday. I think that's really exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
Hell yeah. It's always exciting, and I think it should be, for Seahawks fans, one of the more intriguing preseasons we've had in a long time. There might be some things a little bit different about the team this year than the last decade or so, huh?
I do take issue with the start time, though. It's a weird start time for me selfishly. It's a 4 p.m. afternoon game, which is kind of like,
yeah.
I know that's what like East Coast people have that like all the time. Like they get their games at like 1 and 4. On the West Coast, we get it at 10 and 1, and then prime time's 5 o'clock, you know, Pacific. But 4 o'clock just like a weird time because it's not the midday game and it's not the primetime game. It's just kind of like pre-dinner game. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, at least it's not on a weekday.
Yeah.
People wouldn't even be off work yet, so that's weird.
The one home game that the Seahawks have for the preseason this year is actually a Thursday game, so that's kind of a weird one.
They just can't leave well enough alone, man.
Yeah, you know.
I'm just glad preseason's only 3 games. That's something I like.
Yeah, that'll be. I mean, this is only our second year with the 17-game regular season schedule. I'm surprised I said that correctly, but you know, this is our second year into it. I still hate it. I still hate the odd number of games and how like it's not just like 4-4-4-4. It's not like split so like evenly and perfectly for like my weird OCD. It's like 17. And 17 is a great number. I like the number 17, but just for the number of games, it's weird.
Right.
Like, I can't get it out of my head.
It looks weird.
I hate it. I still hate it. I will always hate it. Like 16 was just so simple and so
it was perfect.
Beautiful and symmetric, and
it was so symmetrical. It was so
32
symmetrical.
Teams and 4 divisions.
Yeah.
It was like it just made
6
sense.
teams in the playoffs, 2 byes, 16 games. Do the projects statistics out so easily.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been 4 games. Times it by 4. Oh, it's been 6 games. Okay, so times it by 3 and the takeaway sum.
Yeah, and then the scheduling for like your opponents was so easy because you knew you had your 6 division games. You had your 2 out of division like rolling schedules. You'd face like different division, and then you had like the 2 extra games that were just like, yeah, whatever non-NFC team you'd play the same team at whatever rank they were. And now there's like this random like, okay, now you're gonna play some random AFC team like out of the blue.
Yeah, now it's an extra like, what are we going to play, a hockey team? Maybe we'll just have brunch that day. Like, what is it? What even is it?
Anyway, we're all hot and bothered, but we are the Hawkscast.net podcast. I am Sam. With me, as always, is Zeb and Ross. You can find us on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast. Go to Seahawks Forum. Go to our website, Hawkscast.net, and the Seahawks are back. We're getting the podcast back together, obviously. Much like many returning faces from the heyday of the Seahawks, we're seeing like Cam Chancellor, Cliff Averill, Michael Bennett, Richard Sherman, Doug Baldwin, Marshawn Lynch, even though he's gotten to some car issues and DUI stuff. He's going to be working with the team. They're all back. It's like the heyday of the Seahawks are coming back, even though we've got a lot of like crazy things coming here. So, you know, we do get to see preseason games, so we're going to see some good, we're going to see some bad, and, you know, we're going to have some camp battles that are actually going to be really competitive. This
I don't know if I can see the preseason games. I have a rant.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
I have a rant.
All right, start the timer.
I have a rant. Time me. So they changed the NFL Game Pass this year.
Yes.
Not just for you guys over there, but it's changed for me too. I like the NFL Game Pass International goes. I subscribe to through my internet. Sorry, through my phone, like my phone service, because I often watch it on my iPad or my iPhone, and like I sound like a Steve Jobs ad now or something. But anyway,
Where's your turtleneck?
I have it on my. I don't have a Mac. I use a PC, but I have an iPad and an iPhone, and that's why I usually watch stuff. Obviously, if I'm on the go, but if I'm at home, I watch it on my Fire Stick. And so anyway, I have the last year's was a 24,000 yen, whatever, Game Pass International package I bought. It's supposed to go until August 13th. I went to watch the Hall of Fame game, which I have to admit to Sammy because he insists nobody watches it, but I tried to watch it.
Tried to. Tried is the imperative word there.
Well, I tried to watch it, but it wouldn't let me. It said, like, you have to choose your subscription for this year, which is already bullshit because my subscription for last year's that I already paid in full, quite a bit of money for, it was until August 13th. The Hall of Fame game was like, what, the 5th or something. I had a week left. But because they're changing the packages, I think it wouldn't go in. So I was like, fine, it's a week early, I shouldn't have to, but whatever. So I go in and I click on, I choose a new package for this year. It's a lot more because that's how I run things. You can get a simplistic package that's crap for less than half the price. So you can get the good package for 27,000 yen. I said, okay, fine, cool. I click it. It confirmed it. It's going to charge it to my phone bill. Again, like as it goes through the phone bill here. You could do it through the website, but I just always do it through the phone bill. And so then I go to turn on the game, and it says, well, you have to choose a package. I'm like, I literally just did. And I just paid in full. But it wouldn't let me watch it. So I go in and I check my subscriptions, and sure enough, it still says I'm subscribed to the NFL Game Pass for last year's and for this year's. But I assume it's just a glitch because it's switching package types or whatever. That my last year's one isn't working now, and my new one's not working now. And I think probably it'll sort itself out automatically August 13th, but I don't know if I can watch this preseason game. So that is my rant. NFL, you owe me money. I want my money back. I had a whole week's left I didn't have to pay for. Then I did pay for it, and I still didn't get to see the game. So all you NFL Game Pass programmers that are listening right now, get on it and get my money back. Thank you.
That is a worthwhile rant. 3 stars.
I was pissed off, dude. Off.
Well, that was almost a 3-minute rant, so that's why you get the 3 stars. But no, I think that would suck. I think Zeb and I we have the luxury of not having to worry that being in a US-based system. But what is weird is all the preseason games are not on Fox or on CBS or on ESPN. They are broadcast locally with local television stations. So in the Seattle market, that's Como, King, Cairo, and Q13. They basically buy the rights to the preseason games, and then they broadcast them locally. So you get like a different flavor of local broadcasting, because it's just the local broadcast networks that actually put it on. So I think we are very fortunate that we don't have to deal with something like that. So pour one out for Ross, because that is tough. But since Ross is feeling feisty, I think we need to kick it off with topic number 1. And Ross, we've been talking about this. This topic is dedicated to Ryan Davis. Team Pete versus Team Russ. Who will be redeemed by the end of the year? I feel like there has been more and more and more and more stuff kind of going on with Russ and Pete, and just kind of like the feeling. So, Ross, pick a side. Who's going to be redeemed by the end of the year? Russell Wilson or Pete Carroll?
Can I clarify terms? Sorry, gonna be a nerd.
All right.
We mean
the judges here. The judges here. We're ready to rule. plead your case?
Okay, how do we define success? Like wins in playoffs, or like Russ cooking and setting new records, or like
I feel let's
yeah.
let's say for the sake of it, when you pick a side, you determine why one will be considered a failure,
Okay, fair enough.
and why one will be considered a redeemed winner.
Set your own terms.
Okay.
Yes, you get the opportunity to.
Okay, I'm going to say that John Schneider, Pete Carroll are redeemed. Now, that does not mean I think we're a Super Bowl contender this year by any means. I think, though, I see a poll after poll after poll. I mean, like, after 3 months of this kind of weighing on people, like, opinions are kind of settling into a darker place than they were a while ago in spring. I see us, like, power ranked at 31 and 32 over and over and over and over and over again. So
we have the 34th and 35th best ranked quarterbacks.
Yeah. And like literally I've seen us like power ranked at 32, 32, 31, 30, 32. So if we finish at like 7 and 10, for example, I think that's a win for us. Like we know we're somewhere in rebuilding. We've stocked up. You don't like to say you're not trying to win every year, and I think they are. Again, I go back and forth with this Austin. What does that mean to always compete? Doesn't mean be dumb, I don't think. Like if we end up with 7 victories, 8 victories, 7 victories this year, without Russ, I think that's a sign that a lot of it's on the coaching, and that I mean you have to have both, but I think that's a victory. Partly because of the division he chose to go to. I think Russ is going to I really, really feel that Russ is still going to have some success throwing the ball and whatnot. I think his stats are going to look good. I think the Broncos may even, they should get a game or two better. But I don't think, I don't think Russ is like their missing piece and they get to the Super Bowl. I don't think any team that ever completely just gives into everything that Russ wants, I don't think that's a recipe to get to the Super Bowl. I don't think that Russ has shown an exceptional amount of self-awareness. He's shown an exceptional drive. He's one of the most divisive Super Bowl winning quarterbacks of all time. You don't know who he is, or you do, but he doesn't, and that's kind of my point, is he doesn't seem to know who he is. So I think the more you say you give him, the more delusional your offense sort of gets. You can get the yards and the stats, but I just don't think it's going to translate to wins. So I don't see either of the teams like winning the Super Bowl or anything like that. It's not going to be like a Broncos Seahawks Super Bowl showdown, Russ versus Pete. But I think we're going to do a lot better than what some people think. And I don't think the Broncos are going to contend for a Super Bowl, which I think is a lot of people kind of assume they will. I keep seeing how the Broncos have like a loaded roster and everything. Like, are the Broncos receivers better than ours? I don't think so.
No, they lost their second best catcher in Noah Fant, so no, they're not. They're not as good as they were last year.
Like I keep reading that he's going to such a talented roster, and I'm like, I'll take Penny and Walker over Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, and I take our wide receivers over their wide receivers, and we have their tight end now. I take our tight end over what they've got left at tight end. So I don't get that. They got a good defense, of course. I mean, Pete Carroll would love that defense. But anyway, not my short answer anymore. But I think we overachieve due to coaching. I think Russ does well, but that his flaws show up, and so I think in the end, essentially we win. But I don't think I think if they worked it together and been able to find a way and put some egos aside, a little bit on both sides, I think they both would have been better. But that wasn't going to happen. So I think we come out ahead compared to what people think.
So I just kind of want to highlight one thing, reiterating what you said here, Ross, is if the Seahawks get to 7 wins, that will be a redemption for Pete and John. That's the same number of wins they had with Russ, and Russ played almost the entire season. Yeah, he missed 3.5 games, but it was a 17-game season, and he only won 4 games that entire year. So not necessarily a lot.
He must have won 5, right? Because
Geno won 1.
Geno Smith won.
Yeah,
so
he won 5 games, which are
right.
So the bar for the Seahawks, and again, this is not to diminish your point, but just to show you how bad they were last year, and the hurdle for them, it's actually not that high because the expectations are so low. Zeb, Team Pete, Team Russ, who is going to be redeemed by the end of the year?
I want to agree with Ross. I think that would be fantastic, but I think, unfortunately, it's going to go the other way. I think that as much as we don't want to admit it, Russell's skill set is just it's so massive, and I think he was underutilized here in Seattle, and I think that I don't know that the Broncos are the team to bring it out of him, but what if they do? They might, right? And I think we're just this grand experiment of going into a season essentially without a quarterback, hoping one of these guys is good enough to just keep the team afloat. You know, what if we see some of these rookie quarterbacks that we passed on in the draft, what if they end up looking good? It's going to be a real...
But that's impossible because they're not even going to play. None of them are good enough even to play this year.
Well, you don't know that.
As of now,
you don't know that.
Before the preseason, there is no rookie that has a clear path to starting. The best one was in Cody Pickett in Pittsburgh, and Mitch Trubisky is starting over him and Mason Rudolph. So
yeah,
the rest of them got moved down to third round draft picks, and Russell Wilson aside, and maybe Kirk Cousins a 4th round. Essentially, once you get drafted in the 3rd round, teams don't even feel compelled. I mean, I really want to have a podcast about this one day, about this giant gaping flaw still in NFL thinking.
Yeah.
But you don't get a fair shot. You don't get a legitimate shot once you were taken in the 3rd round, especially as a quarterback. Like,
unless there's a massive
never
injury,
going to get on the field.
You have to have a massive injury.
Right. There are weird circumstances that may come together to get. So yeah, go ahead.
I finish.
Sorry.
I mean, I don't know that any of those guys are going to have any success immediately, but even long term, the fact that we're the team that traded away Russell Wilson and then passed on all the rookies, that'll always stand out to people. And if those guys end up looking good or halfway decent or better than Geno Smith and Drew Lock, that's always going to be a blemish on Pete and John's legacy.
Tony Eason. Jason Eason?
Jason Eason?
Tony Eason's 1983. Sorry.
This unfortunately, I think, is the year where Pete's, he's the ultimate motivator. Nobody builds culture in the NFL like him, maybe ever. But it's got to translate to wins on the field. And,
what's our ceiling this year?
I think that 7 to 8 wins is the absolute ceiling.
What do you think is most likely?
Probably 4.
Ooh,
5.
Ouch.
And honestly, that's if things kind of really come together. We have so many question marks. And I don't believe any of this that I'm saying. I'm just trying to have the alternative viewpoint.
I appreciate that because I got some words that I want to add. Ross, real quick, I'll let you answer Zeb's, your own question. What do you think the floor is? What do you think the floor is, and what do you think they'll win? Or the ceiling, I guess.
Man, I mean, there is a path to 3-4 wins. There is. I don't think it's very likely. I just don't see a Pete Carroll team ever. His philosophy itself doesn't allow you to have that many. I don't know, coaching matters so much, I believe. I mean, this could be the year, Austin just takes me to school, man. This could be the year. If we end up, at 2-15, and the team quits on Pete, and the running game doesn't eat up clock because it's always 3 and out, and, I mean, jeez. There's a road to 3-14, 4-13. Yeah, I could see it. I don't think I'm that wrong, but I have been before.
Right.
I once stood on the hill and declared the Neanderthals never interbred with humans. I remember the class. Bruce the Brock's looking right at me, just going like, "Yes, they did." And I'm like, "There's no way. There's no way Neanderthals and humans interbred, or modern humans interbred in Europe." And now it's settled. It's settled the case. They did. So I was wrong. I'm sorry, Professor the Brock. So I've been very, very wrong before, and I admit it. So Zeb is probably
I rarely have.
I've probably. Nah, you're probably like, it's funny. I pretend that I'm being objective, but maybe I've created my narrative, and I don't know. Where you at, Sammy?
So my ceiling, I think, is very similar to Zeb. I'll just say it's 8 is like perfect season. Like everything works out well. 8's the highest that they're gonna get to, because I look at it with Geno and Drew. Are they as good as Tavares Jackson and Russell Wilson, or Matt Hasselbeck / Clipboard Jesus? Probably. They weren't very good when those guys started for Seattle, and we won 7 games those years. So 8, I feel, is like the absolute ceiling. The floor, I'll actually put it at like 6, because I'm looking at our schedule. I'm looking at the other teams that we're facing, and there are a lot of bad teams that are on our schedule. Like, this is the first time we've had a last place schedule since we've been in the NFC West. That says a lot. That's almost 20 years of them not being the worst team in the division. So that's where I would put it.
Yeah.
Big size all around. I get it.
I mean, part of the issue is like it's not just about us. It's the conference and the division that we're in.
So
I don't really believe in the 49ers.
Right. I mean, they have $29 million like that they're basically like chained to with Jimmy Garoppolo, and they have to cut him because his dead cap is so small. It's like $3.5 million. They're going to get $26 million in cap space by cutting a guy that they've already said is not the starter. He's probably healthy enough, but they're trying to like see if a team is willing to take it on. But if they do, they're going to have to eat up a huge portion of Jimmy Garoppolo's salary, and that just doesn't make sense. And I know that like every media person out there says, well, Pete Carroll's not going to start the season with Drew Lock and Geno Smith, so obviously they're going to get Baker Mayfield. Obviously they're going to trade for Sam Darnold. Obviously they're going to, get Jimmy Garoppolo. That's what everyone's saying, but Pete's willing to run with nobodies at quarterback. So we've seen it before.
Well, the difference is that Jimmy Garoppolo, if he's cut, is zero. I don't think they want to give up any draft. I think the play has always been that they want to get their quarterback next year. I think there's already a guy they like next year. I don't know, because I don't watch enough college football ahead of time. So I think the plan has always been to get the quarterback next year.
Yeah, Seattle.
So they just need a bridge this year.
Seattle is very much geared with 2 first-round draft picks, 2 second-round picks, and they're going to have almost like $40 million in cap that is not accounted for like exciting or extending anyone. So they have the move. I want to move a little bit faster, so I'm going to give my quick synopsis. I think that Zeb and you, Ross, both point out really good things. I think in year 1, it will seem like Russ will be redeemed because he is likely to have a better year. I don't think the Broncos are going to have a great playoff run because I think Russ's limitations, if he does not correct them, if a first-year coach does not find a way to get Russ to use the check down, to use the middle of the field, in addition to play action under center and accurate, deep ball attack, I don't see them being very dangerous in the playoffs. Like, I feel that if you can limit Russ, and that's what we've seen. We saw the Giants limit Russ to like 6 points 2 years ago. If you can do that, you're really limiting your team, and you can't have that. You can't have such a handcuff as on your starting quarterback like we've seen Russ do when he gets locked down. That's just a really, really bad position to be in. I think that he will do well in the regular season. Like Zeb said, he'll put up yards, he'll get touchdowns, he'll be very accurate as he always is, but it won't be enough to propel them further. They're not going to go on this deep playoff run. But year one, Russ will get acknowledged as the Seahawks made a mistake. Long term, it's still Pete and John that are going to win out because they got 5 draft picks, 3 players that are all probably going to start for the Seahawks for at least 2 more years. 1 more year, maybe, for Drew Lock. They got a haul. Like, the more I look at what the Seahawks got for Russell Wilson, the more and more I think they got the best deal. Because they're not going to have to give out a $50 million guaranteed contract to their quarterback now. They have that option. And like Ross said, they are primed to take a quarterback in the 2023 draft. Whether that's a first-round pick, second, whatever, they have options. They also have options to trade and acquire anyone else they think that will make them a better team long term. So I see Pete is going to win this trade long term. Even if he has a terrible season next year, he has laid a foundation for what the future is, and the owner has to know that. Because if the owner said, hey, I'm not willing to wait for this team to be better in 2 to 3 years, I'm keeping the quarterback. That is the decision you should have made. I'm not saying that that's what I would have done, but if your decision is to win now and to win consistently, even if that means you change the culture and you have to give a $50 million contract, that means you keep the quarterback and you get rid of the head coach.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Okay. So
I'm right there with you.
Now
you.
I want to loop this into topic number 2. So Zeb, topic number 2, speaking of Pete, speaking of culture, speaking of what he brings to Seattle, is it a mistake though to invest in guys like DK when the team doesn't have a quarterback? We invested in Jamal last year. We invested in Quandre Diggs at the beginning of this offseason. They're giving a lot of their young guys those opportunities to become the leaders. Like Jordan Brooks is now the de facto leader in the middle of the field as he gets the green dot for the defense. But specifically, we saw all these wide receivers get contracts. We talked about it earlier in the season about wide receivers in general. But is it a mistake to invest in a guy like DK when it's Drew Lock and Geno for at least 1 year throwing him the ball?
It is absolutely not a mistake. I think not only is it not a mistake, I just don't think you even have any choice at this point. He's statistically, and we've seen some, those of us who have watched every play that DK Metcalf has run as a professional football player, we see his shortcomings. We see the mistakes he's prone to make. All that aside, he still statistically has had one of the best 3-year starts for a wide receiver in NFL history. I don't know the exact numbers, and I haven't compared everybody, but it's up there, right? If you look at some of the greats throughout history, he's right up there with them statistically. So you have to assume, as hard as this guy works and as passionate as he is, you have to assume he's going to continue to get better, even if it's just incrementally. And based on the situation right now, the way this team is being sort of retooled, he, like you said about Jordan Brooks, he's essentially the de facto leader on the offensive side of the ball. He's a guy who goes hard, and we've seen this. We've seen clips now. Even in training camp, the guy's going hard. Like some of these videos I've seen, it looks like he feels like he's playing in a game. And that's the attitude that you want. That's the kind of that's what you want out of a guy. And so I think he sets an example. I think he helps make his teammates around him better. I think he's exactly the kind of guy you want when your quarterback isn't necessarily that good. Somebody who gives you that range, a big body, somebody you can kind of throw the ball up, and he gives you a good chance to come down with it. I think he's the exact kind of investment this team had to make right now. And I honestly would have been very disappointed if they had decided not to do it.
Ross, what about you? You look at the contracts that Deebo Samuel, Marquise Brown, all these other wide receivers from his same draft class, DK has the most guaranteed money. He got, I think he got the biggest contract. They all signed about 3 to 4 year contracts, so he's gonna hit free agency again at 27 years old. But should the Seahawks have signed DK when we know that we're going to be limited at quarterback?
Yeah, I think these days I think it's actually the Seahawks that created this model. Maybe I'm self-centered because of this. It's the team I follow, but I think that like what we did with the Russ situation is kind of what they're doing here, and I think it's the model now. Like you put your pieces together, and then once you've got them, then you get your quarterback, and that's part of it, right? I think a lot like what Zeb was saying. DK's the guy you keep for sure. He's the guy that's ideal to have when you have less than perfect quarterback play, because I feel like his skill set, especially, I mean, with the ability to catch things that maybe other wide receivers aren't going to catch because they don't have the wingspan, or they don't have the speed to catch up to that ball or whatever. I think he's a kind of wide receiver, I believe, that makes the quarterback better. The guy, I would worry about if he was up for a contract is Tyler Lockett, and coming up, like, and I've written this elsewhere. Like, I worry that Tyler Lockett is somebody that's a bit dependent on a quarterback like Russell Wilson. We'll see. I've heard good things out of training camp. I could be really wrong. I really hope so. But DK, yeah. And the other thing is also, when going back to the model they did last time. Last time they cast a wide net. Remember doing it again this time. Like they got Drew Lock in a trade. They've gathered some draft picks they could use to pick him. They had some guys on board. They're seeing if they want to develop next year, for example. If they do draft guys, but they also feel like they have a chance to attract a quarterback who maybe is going to move on. Maybe they figure, for example, like a Kirk Cousins is good enough. Just as an example.
Boo,
Maybe
Kirk
they
Cousins.
think Kirk Cousins is... Yes, I understand.
Guy doesn't know how to cook a steak.
Well, that's a whole other issue. Like if they get in a situation where they feel like, wow, actually, we want to draft a rookie quarterback, but we're also going to bring in some, a la Matt Flynn kind of thing. We also want to bring in somebody as well. You have to be in a situation you can attract them as well. And DK, the opportunity to throw to DK Metcalf is an attractive offer, I think, for a lot of, you have to. We're in danger right now of getting into that zone where we're not an attractive team to play for anymore. If we look like we're not competing, or if it looks like we're not going to be competitive anymore, you got to have something to offer them that looks like hope. And I think this year's draft class was about that. Like, we just got 2 brand new starting tackles. We addressed that. We got a brand new guy to replace our running back situation. We improved a tight end. So we're kind of set up to look good, to be attractive to a potential free agent quarterback if other avenues don't work out. I think they much prefer to draft one, and who doesn't have a choice, you're going to play here. But again, they're covering all the bases that they usually do, and they're going to look attractive. And DK is always going to make your team look attractive. And that's beyond just like what Zeb just said. He's a culture setter. I worry about that. I don't know. He doesn't seem very cerebral to me. I still haven't seen him get his temper under control, so I worry about that kind of example. But there's no doubt he's a leader. I could make the argument, and I think I did somewhere, that you could make the argument to get rid of him right now. And I wouldn't have even been surprised if he didn't. If he didn't want to move on, because it's a statistics-driven world, and to be honest, young people themselves, more than previously, they're all their own statistics matter, and it's going to matter in his next contracts and so on. And so, if he doesn't think he's going to get the numbers with Drew Lock or Geno throwing to him, that I could have seen him not wanting to stay. But the fact that he wanted to stay probably took a little bit less. He probably could have squeezed a few more dollars out. Maybe that was in exchange for the high guarantee. But I don't know, it was pretty interesting. I was pretty excited. But the objective, whatever part of me could have made the case the other way. I mean, what could you have gotten for DK?
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to go down the route of like, hey, we're blowing everything up, everything's a fire sale, we're getting as many picks as we can, then trading away DK pre-draft would have been the best opportunity, because it would have been before all the 2019 wide receivers got extended. You would have gotten the best value for it, but because this was a particularly heavy wide receiver draft class, it might have like changed what people were willing to offer.
I don't know. I mean, like, teams got pretty good deals for what? Titans traded their guy away. Baltimore traded their guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they got fair value.
AJ and Marquise Brown, but Marquise Brown is he got charged with criminal speeding. So we'll see what happens to him. I
mean, Russell. Sorry, last thing is like Russell Wilson's personal private yes man. Jake Heaps. He was basically insisting that the Metcalf trade was like a done deal. He was telling us.
Yeah, well, I mean, that guy had a sip of coffee in the NFL, so I don't really know what that guy knows. So yeah, he's Russell Wilson's quote unquote quarterback coach, but that guy is just a yes man. I really don't see what he has to offer from any kind of perspective other than just like being a guy that's there to like carry Russell Wilson's towel. So, you know, if that's his life,
I think it's more like
what he wants, good for him. But yeah,
I mean, he's able to say things that we can't have seen coming from Russell's mouth, right?
Right, which is another reason why I like what he has to offer is so limited and so immaterial, because it's rarely going to be his own original thought. It's going to always be something that is going to be tinted.
Well, of course. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Wilson.
It's his value to Russell. I mean, whatever he's making, it's worth it for Russell Wilson to not have to say some of those things. And I think Russell Wilson's now wise to the fact that we all get his agent's game. So Russell Wilson needs a new and more effective voice. And Jake Heaps is it. If Jake Heaps' his game and attitude transfers to Denver, which I'm interested to see, because he's through and through a Seattle type of guy. I'm interested to see how he handles the Denver scene.
Yeah. Really quick, we're gonna wrap up this topic. The only reason why I feel you could consider extending DK right now is because you don't believe in Pete, you don't believe in the culture, you don't believe that he can rebuild things, right? People that have a propensity to disbelieve or think that, oh no, that was lightning in a bottle, and that Pete over the last 12 plus years basically got lucky, and that's why the team was able to see that success. If you have any shades of that mentality, then I think you would also say like, no, they should have just gotten more draft picks, traded DK, and that's the reason why you think it's a mistake. But both of you have already mentioned, he's a leader. He's already said to the NFL Network that he thinks that they can win the NFC West. Whether he's being smart about that or if he's just like very proudful of the team, that's what a leader does. Leader, you make bold proclamations. Russell Wilson from day one was why not us? Always like there's a leader in the room. He had all the cliches and people didn't say that guy's crazy. There's no reason to think that DK can't be that same kind of leader that Seattle has now, because on the offensive side, there is no vocal leader. There's no person that the offense can look to and say, hey, let's rally around. There's an actual clip that the Seahawks put out very shortly after DK signed his extension, and what DK was doing is he was calling the offense up. He was saying like, everyone huddle up, and it was not before a play. He was just telling offense, and calling the entire offense to him. That is what you want. That is what Pete aspires to have on his team, and I am very happy that DK's got extended. I really didn't have any doubt, but I am glad that it happened when it did. But as you said, you have to have all the pieces in place before you get your quarterback. Because if you get your quarterback and you don't have your tackles, you don't have a running game, you don't have a wide receiver for them to throw to, then you're wasting all those years for your quarterback. And I think what Pete and John are trying to do is they are building for the future, and extending DK is the right move. If we were talking about a Tyler Lockett, then I think that would be a much different question, and I think we'd probably all feel very unsure of what that would actually look like. Let's power ahead. We're going to go to topic number 3. We'll power through this one because we're running a little long. But Ross, who is your training camp rookie adoptee, and who's going to be a bust? So just to recap, we've got tackle Charles Cross, edge Boye Mafe, running back Kenneth Walker, tackle Abraham Lucas, corner Kobe Bryant, corner Tariq Woolen, edge Tariq Smith, wide receiver Bo Derek, and wide receiver Derek Young. Who is your rookie you're adopting, Ross, and who do you think is a bust?
I'm going to do it in reverse order.
Sure.
I gotta say I'm not as excited as anybody else I've heard about Boye Mafe. I admit he has a cool name, much cooler than mine. And I'm not saying he's not a good athlete. I'm not saying this, that, or the other thing. But you took the guy at number 40, and you took him apparently to build your pass rush. But that dude's not like a dominant pass rusher. And I just don't have much hope that he's going to meet expectations at all. I'm not saying he's like a bust. But like if you think we're getting, Averill or something like that, you're going to be disappointed. He looks to me like a 6 to 8 kind of sack a year type dude max. And I don't think that's what people are hoping for. I think people are looking at 10 to 14 maybe by his second year, and I just there's nothing there I can.
Those people need to chill.
Lofty.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you hoping for? I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people aren't expecting. What are you hoping from him, like by next year, for example?
I want Boye Mafe to be like a Alton Robinson in his first year, or Darryl Taylor in the second year. I think that would be a win.
So you're happy, like if he's maxes out like an 8 sack a year dude kind of guy.
Rotational edge rusher. Yeah, and if he could be more, and he.
The thing is, like in the past, when we were our best, we had rotational pass rushers, but the rotational pass rushers still got 12, 10, 11. Frank Clark.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, but we.
Then it was part of a rotation, but still getting 12.
Right. What I'm saying is I don't need him to be the number 1 pass rusher, but if he can get 6 to 8 sacks off in rotation, I think that's a win. Now, maybe people will say like, "Oh, in the second round you should have gotten a 10+ sack guy." It's like, yeah, that would have been great.
He's just the one pick I didn't get.
Okay.
The whole thing was to build your pass rush, and I don't think you got a pass rusher. I think you got like a defensive end, like kind of old school, like edge setter, occasional rush. He's not. Okay, so that's it.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well, who is your rookie adoptee out of this draft class?
I'm gonna do my what's it called? My runner up first is a little bit of a shout out to Birdfinger, who hauled us very, very early. Birdfinger was super high on Tariq Woolen from the beginning, and I had serious doubts, and had other people, even other cornerbacks I want to take into that slot, but everything so far says that dude's balling out and looks like he belongs. I mean, he played with the ones. He's a 5th round draft pick, already playing with the ones sometimes. So
yeah. There's a great video. There's a great video of him and DK going up on a. It's kind of a fade route in the corner of the end zone, and the guy's just fighting all the whole way. It's quite cool to see. But who's your number one? Who's your rookie that you're looking forward to?
It's not very exciting. It's Kenny Walkerman. I rarely get excited for a running back that's drafted, but like my fantasy stuff that's going on, I'm all on. I'm buying shares everywhere. I can't stop watching film. I'm excited. I don't even think he's going to play that much. I think Penny's going to do really, really well and not get hurt.
Oh,
I'm excited for Kenny Walker, though.
Ross is stashing Kenny Walker on his rookie taxi squad. That's what he's saying.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm super high on that dude, man. I can't even explain it.
I don't know how you could say that this is the guy you're most excited for when you're not even willing to start him on your fantasy team. But maybe that's a different conversation.
Well, I mean, it's because again, like it's there's that Penny dude there, right? I mean, maybe we're so much in on the run this year that you can like start two running backs from the same team. Like you can sometimes now start two wide receivers from the same time in fantasy, and if that's true, I'll be super ecstatic.
All right.
I'm just super excited for what that guy's going to be over the next 6-7 years.
Zeb, who is your adopted rookie, and who is your bust from this draft class?
Well, I'll go in reverse order, just like Ross did, and Kenneth Walker is going to be a bust.
Oh no!
And Boye Mafe is going to be a superstar.
Ooh.
So there.
Oh, what? What?
Zeb just threw down. Zeb just threw down there.
Now, I don't know. You guys know me. I don't watch college football.
But what gives you that feeling, though?
No, I just wanted to say the opposite thing. My adopted rookie, I'm going to say Kobe, just so I can say Kobe when he does cool shit. I can be like, Kobe.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be fun. And I'm, you know what? I'm not going to pick a bust because I have faith in all of these young men.
All right.
There's a faithful... Yeah, there you go. There's a faithful man.
Well, I'll also go in reverse order because that's a trend. I don't know if they're really bust, but they're 7th-round draft picks. I'm hearing nothing from Bo Melton and Derek Young. Like, they're gonna be guys that maybe make a practice squad. So, I don't know how much of a bust anyone can be from the 7th round, but they're definitely not sticking out. I mean, Charles Cross is getting
busted in the 7th round.
Yeah, I by default, because I don't even think they make the roster.
You couldn't even find VMAC. That's a bust of your 7th round.
But like, I look at everyone on the roster. Everyone on the roster is getting reps. Charles Cross is. No one's talking about him. They're just saying he's getting all the reps with the ones. That's it. And there's nothing bad about it. Nothing good about it. He's the left tackle for the foreseeable future.
That's what I want from my left tackle. I want to plug him in and never hear his name again.
Exactly. Abraham Lucas is getting rotational starts with the 1s and 2s, so he's starting along with Curran and Forsyth. So he's up there getting reps, which is always a good thing. Kenneth Walker looks explosive in the highlights that we've seen. Mafe, I think he's tagged as like the 2nd string outside linebacker / edge. I haven't really heard a lot about Tyreek Smith. I think he's injured, but Kobe Bryant and Tariq Woolen, they're the ones that seem to be getting a lot of the hype. Now, Tariq is getting most of the hype because he is playing against the 1s, but the latest news is Kobe Bryant's getting a look at the nickel, which means that he's starting over on Marquise Blair, Justin Coleman, and one other guy. So if he is our starting nickel corner, that has me really excited because he's got huge size. He doesn't have great shuttle or like that agility to go like spaz around, but he's got huge size, and he also won the award for best college DB or senior DB in college football last year. So my rookie adoptee, I'll just say Charles Cross, because if that guy just locks down the position and we don't think about left tackle for the next decade, that's a huge win. So that's the guy I'm looking forward to. And that's it. All right, let's go to the last topic so we don't go too long. But topic number 4. Zeb, what I want to know is, are there any telltale signs to look for in our preseasons game? When we used to think about the pre-17 game schedule, it was always the 1s play for a quarter at most. In game 2, they'll play like a quarter and a half. In game 3, they'll play through halftime, and then in game 4, they don't get any experience at all. We've kind of seen that old style totally ramped up. So what are you looking forward to, as we're going to have 2 preseasons games before we do our next podcast? So what are things that fans or you should look for when the team suit up these next 2 games?
Well, there's obviously so many things with this team this year, and I'm just going to say a couple of things that I'm personally interested in seeing. First, with our quarterbacks, I want to see Geno be decisive, and I want to see Geno make quick decisions. I think we all kind of assume he's the safer of the two quarterbacks, but last year he just looked slow. It was things like it just seemed like the game was too fast for him, and I'm hoping that going into this season with the mentality of a starter, I want to see him make quick decisions and lead the offense. I think with Drew Lock, he's kind of a wild card. I want to see. His footwork bothers me. Not that I'm an expert on that kind of shit, but he just doesn't. He moves weird.
Were you making fun of him? What, like rocking New Balance or some Air Monarchs or something?
Oh, no, I'm a New Balance guy, so we got that in common. But no, I want to. Everybody kind of talks about him like he's this gunslinger type. I want to see him play within the offense. Obviously, I want to see him make the quick decisions as well. But I want to see. I don't think we really know what we have in him. I think we kind of know what we have in Geno, and I'm hoping he's able to, progress and get better. And now that he has had more time to work as a starter, but obviously just the whole juxtaposition between those two guys, getting to see how they both work. Hopefully, we'll get a chance to see them both with the ones. I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know if you guys know how that's going to work, but and then just lastly, I'm going all offense. I'm curious to see what kind of offense Shane Waldron is going to call, minus Russell Wilson. How similar is it going to look? Is he going to ask these guys to do different things than Russell did? Obviously, we're not going to be able to depend on the whole scramble drill and that kind of thing. So I'm just curious to see what kind of offense he calls. And obviously in the preseason, we're not going to see, things are going to be pretty vanilla. We're not going to see anything. They're going to probably hold their cards pretty close. But it's something worth looking at, and I'm curious to see how it all plays out.
Zebs is saying if the Seahawks run one successful screenplay, Pete is vindicated. Pete's redeemed. That's what I read it as.
Even if it's in the first preseason game in the fourth quarter.
Ross, what about you? What are some telltale signs to look for in these preseason games? There are a lot of positional battles that are going to be determined. There are a lot of positions that we don't have locked down. Outside linebacker, corner positions are up for the air. We know who's safety. We have a good idea of who our tackles are, defensive tackles, and our inside linebacker. But we don't know who our outside offensive tackles are going to be. We don't know who's going to be that third wide receiver. We don't know what the running game is going to look like with Shane Waldron. What are the things that you would look for in these preseason games?
The first and obvious one is the quarterback thing. I have a new theory. I was kind of freaking out last week a little bit where I was reading that Locke is not getting almost any time with the ones, even though the way I parse Pete is that I feel like Pete wants him to win the job. So I was like, well, he can't win the job if he doesn't get a legit chance. But now I'm starting to think that the method to the madness is like he wants Drew Lock to win, but he wants Drew Lock to work really, really hard to get that, to earn it. And giving all the respect in the world to the established 9-year veteran who maybe has never been a star or even average, but he knows what he's doing. And so I think I want to look in these games to see if that seems to be the plan. Is it, yeah, Locke, you actually are in the conversation, but you're going to have to take this. So can you take it? We know. Geno Smith, Zeb's saying, hey, I hope he improves, and I do too. It's a different attitude going into camp as the starter or a potential starter than I know this year we're going to be backing up Russ again. But after 9 years, I don't know how much there is left to improve. I think he is what he is at this point, mostly. Whereas Locke has had bad coaching or lack of coaching and different teams already. I think Locke, I'm not saying he is. I'm saying if there's any quarterback on the team that's probably still developable, it's Locke. We don't know what we have with Locke. We don't know what he looks like in the system. We don't know what he looks like with effective, proper coaching. And so that's what I'm most interested in. I want to see, but I'm also curious if they're even willing to do that in the game. Is this all going to be, because it seems like it's a secret plan. Beyond that is the easy stuff. I want to watch the cornerbacks. I want to see, and that's one of the things you really, really can't. There's some things you just can't evaluate in preseason. But you know what? Watching the cornerbacks line up and take their zones and dominate their zone, or take their man in man coverage.
Wait, hold up. I gotta ask a question here. Are you saying we are not going to see our wide receivers play 10 yards off the line of scrimmage anymore? A la Ken Norton.
Our cornerbacks.
Like, is that something that I can look forward to? Is that something I should be looking for, Russ? I need to know.
I mean, maybe. I mean, it sounds like, it sounds like they're playing a sort of a modified cover 3 with that you line up differently. It depends on what the other team shows you. So it could still be quite a bit of a cushion, but it's going to be a sort of mixed zone man, and it could also be that like assignments are disguised, and also like this the assignments are known rather than in the huddle. Rather than once the offense moves their guys around, that changes everything. It's supposed to be a much more aggressive defense. But I don't think you'll see that. But I don't think you'll see that in preseason. No, I don't think they want to reveal those cards at all. You're going to see really generic, even more than usual generic defense, I think. Just like let's each individual player's physicality and physical gifts show themselves, and you can evaluate each individual person's talent. That's all they want to do right now. They're not going to show any cards on defense, I don't think.
Right. Yeah, I think both of you point out a good thing. There is so much to look forward to. I think the biggest telltale sign is who starts in game 1 versus who starts in game 2. Like we have a couple of predictions about this moving forward, and to the point of Pete wants Drew Lock to win this job, but in order for him to win it, he has to play so much better than Geno does. It's very similar to what we saw with Matt Hasselbeck and Charlie Whitehurst. Charlie Whitehurst was a guy that they wanted to win the job, and he couldn't play at better enough than Matt Hasselbeck. I don't think Pete wanted Russell Wilson to necessarily win the job, but he just played so much better than Matt Flynn, and Matt Flynn with his dead arm injury just opened the door for Russ to take over. That will be the tell. Whoever can come and have that solid game 1 and gets a start in game 2, gets to play with the ones, that will be the telltale sign. That is what we should all be looking for. Like, if Tariq Woolen is starting in the second half of the first game, but then in game 2, he gets the starting nod over Artie Burns or Sidney Jones, even if it's injury related, that's what we should be looking for. And I think the fact that there are so many positions, so many key positions that we could look at, those are the telltale signs. It's like, oh wow, this guy is taking his opportunity. This guy is taking advantage of that injury. That guy's taking advantage of camp and training camp and these preseason opportunities. And that's potentially the one that's going to get the starting job in week 1 against the Denver Broncos. And that's what I will look for.
I think that's great. I think you're exactly right.
I do wish, if there was one thing I wish we had that I'm disappointed we don't, is that I wish we had a competition at kicker. Jason Myers, is that his name? Mike Myers? Our kicker, Myers.
Mike Myers, Jason Myers.
Right? I mean, we were confused of who our third string quarterback was. Jacob Eason, is that his name? But we were going through a few names before we got there.
I did. I went through Tony Easton, who was the first round pick for the Patriots in 1983.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like the '83 famous class: Dan Marino, John Elway, and then Tony. They said let's throw in there, but.
All right. So I wish that the Seahawks had signed a kicker to challenge
a non-serial killer.
Right.
A non-serial killer kicker.
I wish they had challenged it, not because I think he's like terrible. He's just okay, and I don't think you should pay money to your kicker when they're just okay. Like if you're gonna pay a kicker to be okay, then you might as well go cheap, because he's costing us games right now. He cost games last year. He was very fluky in the previous year, and the year that we cut him that's when he had his amazing year, and we just haven't had that. So that's the one thing I wish we saw. But maybe
dude, you live 20 minutes from VMAC. Go try out.
Dude,
Nick Lowry's only 66.
I've capped out. I capped out at 25 yards. I can't even kick a PAT. Like, I've tried, and I did this at the last time I attempted any kick was when I was in college with my buddies. We drove to Pullman and we hung out on Martin Stadium, which is a field that the Washington State Cougars play on. And I capped out at 25 yards, which is 2 yards less than a PAT. So I'm not trying out for anything.
All right. Tony plays soccer. He's only 50.
Yeah. He could probably leg it out there. He could probably get up to 40 yards. Easy.
I bet Tony could kick a 35-yard field goal.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if he could do it under pressure, but...
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to do it off a tee, another thing to have some dude coming for you.
Yeah.
And those are our topics. We got some predictions we're going to go through. Only a few today. But, Zeb, I'm going to hit you up first. Who looks better? And this is more of a theoretical question. This is not like I need you to know definitively. But Gino versus the ones or Drew versus the twos? We know that Gino's getting the start in the first preseason game this Saturday. But who's going to look better? Is it going to be Gino versus the Steelers' number 1 defense? Or is it going to be Drew playing against the Steelers' number 2 defense?
Drew Lock.
Ross, what about you? Who's going to look better?
Please let it be Locke.
Oh,
please.
Okay.
I mean, like, man, Geno Smith, I mean, everybody else seemed to come away sort of like encouraged, but man, I was sort of traumatized and saddened by Geno Smith last year. Like, at 8 years in the league, sometimes last year, he literally looked like a deer in the headlights, and like the gears seem to be turning really slow.
Yeah,
he's apparently a really smart guy off the field and can draw stuff up, so maybe he's got coaching potential at some point. As a long-term backup, that's usually the direction you can go. But man, he did not look like a starting quarterback to me.
I think when you bookend Geno's 3.5 games, what you saw in that quarter and a half of the Rams and what you saw in the Jags, like if that's what you got for that entire 3.25 quarter stretch, you'd be like, oh man, maybe we don't need to pay Russ. But because he paid so timid and so slow and just indecisive in the Steelers and Saints game, I understand why people are very concerned.
His face constantly looked bewildered.
Yeah.
When he was on the field.
I think, though, and again, this is why people always say if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have 0. And the idea is that the quarterback needs to know that they're the guy. For whatever reason that is, whether it's mentality, whether it's culture, or whatever, it seems like in the NFL, you need to know definitively that you are the quarterback, you are the undisputed leader. And if you are replacing a guy just for injury and they're going to come back, there is that chance that you are still going to play very timid because you don't want to be the reason why you lose. Like you're trying to play well enough not to lose, but you're also not playing well enough to win. And I think that's what we saw with Geno. And once he kind of was able to let go, again, it was against the worst team in the NFL. He looked really good. He completed like 12 passes in a row. He had like 2 amazing touchdowns to DK. So I think Geno will have a better game against the ones than Drew will, just because of the concerns that we've mentioned about Drew Lock. But I think that Gino will have a good day against the Steelers ones because it's a preseason game and no one takes it too seriously. All right, prediction number 2. Zeb, who starts in the second preseason game? Is it going to be Geno Smith or is it going to be Drew Lock?
Drew Lock.
Ross?
I mean, it's hard because I'm not sure I agree or we agree on the pattern the Seahawks are going to be using for their preseason games when it's only 3.
Right.
So I had the impression that the starters would play more in the first and third, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
So the second game, yeah, I guess Drew Lock just to give it a rotation, but it'll also sort of make me worried. I mean, it's weird with only. I hate the whole NFL now. I hate their games. Everything I once knew, I don't know. I don't know.
When it goes to an 18-game schedule, it'll really mess you up. I think it's going to be kind of hard. I think it's hard to definitively predict who is going to start in the second preseason game. I think it's still going to be Geno. I think until something changes and definitively like Drew like really just like starts blowing the socks off of people in camp, it's still Geno's job to lose. My prediction on the website is that Geno starts the year as a starter, but Drew ends the year as a starter. So I think that's the problem.
I think Drew takes the job by the end of training camp. I think that's the goal. I think
that's what they want. I don't know if they're there yet, and it'll depend on what we see in those preseason games.
I mean, like you just said, like Drew Lock is going to have to sort of blow some socks off, but all reports I'm reading are like he is. I'm not like he's amazing, but
right.
he's.
But I think the qualifiers, over Geno. But the qualifiers, he's doing that against the twos. So he's doing with lesser talent.
Yeah, but he's also doing it with the twos.
Right. So he's doing it with lesser talent, but also against lesser talent. So I think that does bear some. But
merit. Some of those twos on defense sound like they might be the ones as well. So I don't know, man.
Fair enough.
I don't know.
All right, third prediction. Zeb, who's going to start at right tackle? Jake Curran, Stone Forsythe, Abraham Lucas.
Drew Lock. No, Curran. I think Curran. I'm going to go with Curran.
Pretty manly names.
Buff, bro.
Well, I'm going with the rookie.
Abraham Lucas? All right. I feel like it is really Curran and Lucas that are fighting for this. I feel that Curran has the inside track because he played well enough to end the year that he wasn't an embarrassment. Tony chiming in saying Lock's the lock. I think he was talking about starting at right tackle with you, Zeb.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those
Tony,
things
Tony, can you make a 35-yard field goal?
Yeah. Tony, let us know what your max range is on a field goal and if you could push Jason Myers for a starting job. I think that the right tackle position, again, it's going to be one of those things that we're going to find out more and more as the preseason progresses, and it shouldn't be a surprise who ends up winning that job by week 1. The last prediction, Zeb, which starter is saved for the regular season? So someone that we're not going to see almost any time. Tony says he caps out at 25 yards, Ross. So you gave him an extra 10 yards.
20. So same as you.
Yeah, but that was like 20-year-old me. I don't know if 41-year-old me could still max out at that. Zeb, right. Which starter is saved for the regular season?
Drew. I'm just kidding. Nobody, unless they're hurt. Maybe Jamal Adams. I know he's got a hand thing.
Playing with the club.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to save anybody just because they're a starter, and they don't. I think everybody's going to get a chance to play unless they're hurt now.
Okay.
That's my guess. I don't know.
Fair enough. Ross, who is saved for the regular season?
Penny. Penny. Maybe just Penny.
Yeah, I think I think that seems kind of like the obvious answer because we don't have like anyone that's super old on the team anymore. We don't have 37-year-old Dwayne Brown. We don't have, Bobby Wagner, who's, in his early 30s at linebacker, that he needs to be rested for the regular season. So I think that if anyone, it'll be Penny, just because he's got a 1-year deal. This is really his only chance to make it.
Bubble wrap that dude till it counts.
Yeah, bubble wrap him and watch his diet. That's what you.
I don't think they let him even leave the room. They just kind of he can go from his dorm room to the weight room and back.
Yeah.
They don't even let him go to the cafeteria on his own anymore.
Yeah. And gentlemen, those are our predictions, and that is our podcast for the day. Let's do some.
Wait! Oh, no. Wait! There's one last prediction. Is there a surprise early cut?
Not on the Seahawks, no.
Drew Lock.
I mean, LJ Collier is the rumored cut, but I don't think that's anything other than the fact that he's a first round bust. So,
but he's moving to the interior, so he'll get some playing time to see if he can do well there.
Yeah.
Last tiny one. Early prediction. Wide receiver 3, is it Eskridge or Goodwin?
Zeb, do you want to go first?
Please be Eskridge. I want him to be good so bad.
I have Freddie Swain as the third wide receiver.
What?
Yeah. Really? Over Goodwin? Over Eskridge? Wow. That's
nobody better never say nothing about Freddie Swain.
Goodwin is fast, but that's about it. And Eskridge
he's
can't
Olympic
stay healthy.
Fast. Olympic fast.
Yeah, well, you know what? Doesn't matter if you've got bad hands.
He had one season where he had 56 catches for 800 and something yards, I believe. He's had a good year once.
What have you done for me lately?
What have you done for me lately?
Exactly.
Thank you, Jenna.
Ain't nobody better not never say nothing about Freddie Swain.
Freddie Swain is kind of a 70s name, isn't it?
Exactly.
Zeb is going to Will Smith me real quick. But now it's time for some shout-outs. Gentlemen, shout-out time.
Shout out to Tony to listen to a podcast that hasn't been on for a few months. Way to go.
Yes.
Yep. Shout out to Tony. Shout out to Birdfinger. Shout out to you guys. I really appreciate you guys.
We appreciate you. I'm excited. We have football, real football, so close. It's the regular season's 3.5 weeks away. We're not doing a podcast every week, but once the regular season starts up, we will do our weekly podcast. So we're not going to do one for a couple of weeks, but definitely check us out. Go to hawkscast.net. You can find us on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast, Seahawks Forum. We are looking forward to this season. It's going to be fun. We don't have a catchphrase anymore because we don't want to really do what Russ says, and a lot of people are making fun of his "Let's Ride," which I think is hilarious. But until we can figure out what we're going to say, we're just going to say "Go Seahawks."
I'm going to say "Go Hawks" because screw that dude. I've been saying that well before that dude was ever on the Hawks.
Yeah,
he doesn't own that. I'm taking it back.
I'm giving it some time. The body is still
fine. Seahawks country, let's soar.
Seahawks.
Let's soar. That's actually hilarious. I love that. All right. We're the Hawkscast podcast. We wish you all a good evening, and we wish you a let's soar.
Let's soar.